This conference will now be recorded.
మన కెమెరా అవసరమా? స్టార్ట్ అయిపోయిందా? Am I audible? Good
Yes,
morning.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Today our topic is acute rheumatic fever. Shall we wait for some time for everyone to join, or we can start?
Start, sir.
Okay. Okay. Rheumatic fever. You all know about rheumatic fever. Is basically an autoimmune reaction to the group A beta hemolytic streptococcal pharyngitis. So basically, the clinical characteristics include mainly 5 features, which is carditis or valvulitis, arthritis, chorea, erythema marginatum, and subcutaneous nodules. But out of all these characteristics, only damage to the heart is permanent, whereas arthritis, chorea, erythema marginatum, subcutaneous nodules, everything will subside by itself. Self-limiting conditions, all are except carditis. So latent period is about 1 to 5 weeks, about 3 weeks. So between the infection of beta hemolytic streptococcal pharyngitis and acute rheumatic fever, there will be some latent period of around 3 weeks. So it is a systemic disease of the childhood. Which age group will be affected by acute rheumatic fever most commonly? Between age of 5 to 15 years. Because the streptococcal infection is more common in childhood. So between age of 5 to 15 years, acute rheumatic fever is more common. So what all organs are involved in this acute rheumatic fever? It is heart, blood vessels, joints, subcutaneous tissue, and CNS. It is a delayed non-suppurative sequelae to the upper respiratory tract infection. It is very rare below age of 3 years, and it is rare in the adults. So it is commonly seen in 5 to 15 years. Most common in third world countries. India, it is the most common cause of valvular heart disease, rheumatic heart disease. In Western population, most common cause of valvular heart disease is degenerative, but here it is mostly rheumatic etiology. The incidence is more during fall, winter, and early spring. Mainly environmental factors like overcrowding, poor sanitation, and poverty will predispose to development of the acute rheumatic fever. After the infection with group A beta hemolytic streptococci, there will be some latent period, and then auto antibodies will be developed, which act against the heart walls, joints, subcutaneous tissue, and basal ganglia of the brain. So which strains produce rheumatic fever? It is a beta hemolytic streptococci M type 1, 3, 5, 6, 18, and 24. They all cause rheumatic fever. Mostly happens following pharyngitis. After skin infection, what is the sequelae? It is streptococcal glomerulonephritis. After pharyngitis, it can cause either rheumatic fever or rheumatic heart disease or streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Skin infection only can cause glomerulonephritis, not heart disease. So how will the patient present? Patient will present with history of sudden onset sore throat, nausea, vomiting, swollen uvula, soft palate will be swollen, tender enlarged anterior cervical lymph nodes will be present. So this is the presentation of the beta hemolytic pharyngitis. So after pharyngitis, there will be a latent period, and then patient will complain of migratory type of joint pains and all other things. So it is basically autoimmune antibodies which act against the beta hemolytic streptococci, will also act against heart valves and joints and other organs. So whenever you leave a patient of streptococcal pharyngitis untreated, then they develop rheumatic fever. During rheumatic fever, all layers of the heart, it is a pancarditis. That means all endocardium, myocardium, and pericardium, all three layers are involved. So this is the chronology of developing symptoms. Whenever there is a infection, streptococcal pharyngitis, polyarthritis will be seen most common. 90% of people, there will be polyarthritis. So it is seen after within 1 month of the streptococcal infection. Carditis is also seen around peaks at 1 month after the infection. Erythema marginatum is little late, but its incidence is very less. Chorea occurs after 2 months. Around 2 months of it peaks at 2 months after streptococcal pharyngitis. Subcutaneous nodules also along with chorea only. So there is a more latent period for development of chorea and subcutaneous nodules, whereas polyarthritis and carditis will occur earlier when compared to chorea and subcutaneous nodules after the infection. So basically this is the pathophysiology. Whenever there is sore throat, there will be immune response against the beta hemolytic streptococci producing antibodies. These antibodies will also act against heart valves causing acute rheumatic heart disease. There will be a deposition of the antibodies. So it will lead to formation of vegetations along the valve closure, and myocardial Aschoff bodies will be formed, and fibrinous pericarditis can occur. So this is the histological picture of the rheumatic granuloma, which shows the mainly Aschoff cells and antishcohistiocyte cells. These two are pathognomonic of rheumatic fever. So initially we'll see carditis. Carditis, how many patients will develop carditis out of all acute rheumatic fever? Some 50 to 60% patients will develop carditis. So the clinical diagnosis is based on the presence of significant murmurs. Mainly regurgitant murmurs are common during acute period. So there will be MR or AR. Pericardial rub can be seen due to involvement of the pericardial layer, and there will be unexplained cardiomegaly with congestive heart failure. So basically in acute conditions, most common lesion is regurgitant lesions, mainly MR and AR. There will be pericardial rub, unexplained cardiomegaly. It is common in young patients. Within first 2 weeks of rheumatic fever only, patient will develop rheumatic carditis. So there will be a murmur in the mitral area. Mitral regurgitant murmur is common. The universal finding in rheumatic carditis, whereas presence of pericarditis or myocarditis is variable. So in all rheumatic carditis, almost all patients will have the murmur. Caricum murmur is common in acute rheumatic fever, which is a diastolic murmur. So mitral valve involvement is seen in 90 to 95%, whereas aortic valve involvement is 20 to 25%. So MR will have PSM in the apex radiating to axilla. So all three layers are involved, I told now. So initial endocarditis or valvulitis. It occurs during first attack of rheumatic fever. Apical holocystic murmur of mitral regurgitation with or without apical MDM. MDM is also called CARICOM murmur. In patients with previous rheumatic heart disease, if there is a characteristic change in the murmur, then we will suspect a new attack of the rheumatic fever. If it is the first attack, when you find a new onset of murmur, you will suspect acute rheumatic carditis. If already patient is having murmur, there will be change in the character of the murmur for the second attack or further attacks. Severe MR is associated with worse prognosis. Incidence of chronic rheumatic heart disease after acute rheumatic heart disease is 90%. So out of 100 patients with acute rheumatic heart disease, 90 patients will develop chronic if they are not treated. So it is what is the pathogenesis? Valvulitis, mitral annular dilatation, leaflet prolapse, and chordal rupture. The cords will be ruptured. That's why it will cause myocardial mitral regurgitation. CARICOM murmur is a mid-diastolic murmur without presystolic accentuation. How do you differentiate CARICOM murmur from murmur of MS? MS murmur is also MDM. CARICOM murmur is also MDM, but only difference is in mitral stenosis murmur there will be presystolic accentuation, whereas in CARICOM's murmur there will not be any presystolic accentuation. And CARICOM murmur is associated with murmur of MR. Pansystolic murmur will also be present. In isolated MS only MDM will be present. Why is it occurring? Due to increased flow through the diseased mitral valve. So basically murmur can occur in two ways, either normal flow across the abnormal valve or increased flow across normal valve. Either of this way a murmur can occur. So during episode of acute rheumatic fever, this echo is showing the valve changes will be minor, chorda rupture will be seen. When the attacks become repeated attacks occur and it will become chronic rheumatic heart disease, you can see the thickening of the subvalvular apparatus, chordae thickening. You can see this mitral valve, chordal thickening can be seen. There will be fixation of the posterior mitral leaflet. So due to the formation of thickened posterior mitral leaflet, this valve cannot be closed properly. That's why it will cause MS. You can see this left atrium is dilated due to the presence of chronic rheumatic heart disease, MS. Next is myocarditis. Along with valvulitis or endocarditis, myocarditis is also associated. New onset cardiomegaly and recent change in the cardiac size is the most specific sign for myocarditis. Pericarditis is seen in 6 to 15% of the rheumatic fever. How does the patient present? Patient presents with the typical pain and typical pericardial pain. Pericardial pain is also pleuritic type of pain which radiates to the jaw, shoulder, and trapezius. So the typical characteristic of pericardial pain is the pain will subside when the patient sits and leans forward. When the patient is lying down, pain will increase. That is the characteristic feature of pericarditis pain. ECG can be normal or abnormal. What is the ECG finding seen in acute pericarditis? Can anyone answer? What are the ECG findings of acute pericarditis?
ST elevation.
ST elevation in the which leads? Even STEMI will cause ST elevation. Diffuse ST elevation will be seen in all the leads. In myocardial infarction only, the leads pertaining to valves, anterior valve or lateral valve, inferior valve will be affected. But here it will be all leads ST elevation will be seen along with PR segment depression. The presence of pericarditis denotes severe cardiac involvement. Next symptom is polyarthritis. Cardiac involvement in acute rheumatic fever is around 60%. Polyarthritis is almost 90%. Here it is given 60 to 60, 75, but 90% according to Harrison. Polyarthritis is seen in 90%. It is the most common and most earliest manifestation of the acute rheumatic fever. Which joints are involved in polyarthritis? It is larger joints like knee, ankle, wrist, and elbow. The involvement will be fleeting type or migratory type. So patient will have elbow pain for some 2 days, and later he will complain of knee pain. Later he will complain of ankle joint pain. So the pain will be migratory type. That is classical of rheumatic fever polyarthritis. It is a non-deforming arthritis. After the formation of arthritis, patient will not have any deformities like rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis patient can have deformities, no? Swan neck deformity and all. But here there will not be any deformity. And it will respond well to the salicylates. Main treatment is aspirin. If you give aspirin, pain will subside. If you do synovial fluid analysis of acute rheumatic fever, there will be leukocytosis. 10,000 to 1 lakh WBC will be present per microliter. And it is exudative type with normal glucose and neutrophilic predominance. Polyarthritis is usually self-limiting and normalizes by 2 to 4 weeks. This point is important. Polyarthritis and chorea never occur simultaneously. Chorea will occur at later stages. Polyarthritis is seen in first week of acute rheumatic fever, whereas chorea will occur after 4 weeks or around 4 to 6 weeks. So there is inverse relation between the severity of arthritis and cardiac involvement. The arthritis is severe, it is said that heart involvement is less, or if heart involvement is severe, arthritis severity is less. So there is a saying called rheumatic fever
Licks the joint, bites the heart.
bites the heart. So the joints are not deformed. It just there will be pain and it will be subsided. Self-limited disease, so it will be subsided on its own. But heart disease is permanent. The other symptom is subcutaneous nodules. These are very rare, 2 to 20%. They are freely mobile, painless nodules seen over the bony prominences and extensor tendons, commonly seen at elbow, wrist, and knee joints. Erythema marginatum. This is rarer than the subcutaneous nodules. I have never seen erythema marginatum. So it is around 3% patients will have erythema marginatum. It is evanescent lesion. So patient will have erythema marginatum today, and by evening, if you see, it will disappear. So it is very rarely seen. Why it is called erythema marginatum? It will clear from the center. Peripheries will be inflamed. So you can see that the rash which is clearing from the center. That is called margins are erythematous. So it is called erythema marginatum. Where do you see this? Trunk or proximal extremities. You can see in this figure, it is having erythema marginating over the shoulder. So it is also a non-painful, non-pruritic, blanches on pressure. It is accentuated by warming of the skin. Important thing is it is associated with carditis. So if patient is having erythema marginatum, you can think of carditis. Associated carditis is present. It is external marker. Chorea. Chorea is also called Sydenham chorea or Saint Vitus dance. It is seen in 5 to 30% of acute rheumatic fever. More common in females, and it is seen in children. Rarely seen after 20 years of age. It is isolated, frequently subtle neurological behavior disorder. So what does the patient have? They will have emotional lability, incoordination, poor school performance, uncontrollable movements, and facial grimacing. And it is exacerbated by stress and disappears with rest. It has a long latent period. So there are some characteristic features of the Sydenham's chorea. That is milkmaid's grip. Milkmaid's grip. What is milkmaid's grip? It is irregular contractions of the muscles of the hand. When you shake hands with this patient, they will squeeze your hand and again leave. There will be regular contractions, squeezing of the examiner's fingers. That is called milkmaid's grip. And there will be spooning and pronation of the hands when patient arms are extended. If you extend the arms of this patient, there will be spooning and pronation of the hands. And the tongue will be darting movements. If you ask the patient to show his tongue or put his tongue out of his mouth, there will be darting movements. But this is also a temporary thing. It does not cause any permanent neurological sequelae. So this is the classical image of the Saint Vitus dance, Sydenham's Korea. You can see the spooning of the hands and pronation. It is a marker of future carditis. Just like erythema marginatum, presence of rheumatic chorea indicates future development of the heart disease, carditis. 23% of the pure rheumatic chorea develops MS in 20-year follow-up, and 27% develop in 30-year follow-up. Chorea is rarely associated with polyarthritis. I told now already, polyarthritis and chorea usually don't coexist. There are some minor manifestations like arthralgia, fever, abdominal pain. Arthralgia and arthritis, what is the difference? What is the difference between arthralgia and arthritis?
Arthritis is pain. Arthritis is
Pain
inflammation.
of the inflammation. You will see fluid accumulation is seen in arthritis. Arthralgia, only
Arthritis.
pain will be there. Yeah. Okay. So it is monoarticular arthritis. There is a mimetic for rheumatic polyarthritis. There is an entity called post-streptococcal reactive arthritis. In some patients, after the streptococcal pharyngitis, they can develop arthritis, but it is not a rheumatic fever. This is the DD for rheumatic fever polyarthritis. This is not migratory type. And what is the difference? If you give aspirin, pain of rheumatic fever polyarthritis will subside, but here it will not subside. And the latent period is very short here, 7 to 10 days. So, but what does evidence say? They tell that we have to give prophylaxis even for the post-streptococcal reactive arthritis. We don't know which is the cause of the arthritis, whether it is rheumatic fever or post-streptococcal reactive arthritis. So if you give prophylaxis, then if it is a acute rheumatic fever, there will be protection against development of carditis. So better to give prophylaxis when there is arthritis, even though it is post-streptococcal reactive arthritis. There can be pneumonia, associated rheumatic pneumonia can be seen very rarely. This is also rarely seen. Usually arthritis is non-deforming. If there is repeated attacks of arthritis, sometimes they develop a deforming arthritis. That is called Jacob's arthritis. You can see the deformities, flexion deformities of the metacarpophalangeal and distal interphalangeal joints. And there will be hyperextension of the proximal interphalangeal joint. But it is non-erosive. Erosions will not be seen. It is a chronic post-traumatic fever arthritis, severe rheumatic heart disease, and not associated with evidence of rheumatic fever. It is not during the acute episode. It is due to chronic repeated attacks will cause the Jacob's arthropathy. It is not an active disease. ESR and RA factor will be negative. There is a new entity called PANDAS. In Harrison, they will give pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections. So in streptococcal infections in children, there will be an autoimmune response that react with the brain tissue. Group A streptococcal infection. There will be obsessive compulsive disorder and tic-like disorders in the children. Here you need not give any secondary prophylaxis. This is a new entity given in Harrison. PANDAS, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infection. So Jones criteria. In 1944, Jones developed the criteria for diagnosis of the acute rheumatic fever. It evolved, and the recent update is given in 2015, Jones criteria. So it involves major and minor criteria. When do you diagnose acute rheumatic fever? When there are two major criteria and one minor, or one major plus two minor. Major criteria includes, you already know, carditis, polyarthritis, chorea, erythema marginatum, and subcutaneous nodules. So basically, they divided the population into low risk population and moderate to high risk population. When do you call it is a low risk population? When the incidence of rheumatic fever is less than 2% in the child group 5 to 15 years, then it is called low group. If it is more than 2% incidence is present, India will come under moderate to high risk population. So in low risk, what is the difference? Difference is, only point you have to remember is, in high risk population and moderate risk, even monoarthritis or polyarthralgia can be taken as a major criteria. Previously, only polyarthritis is considered as major criteria, but here in new update, moderate and high risk population, monoarthritis and even polyarthralgia are considered as major criteria. This is the point you have to remember. And in minor criteria also there are some differences. Because polyarthralgia is a major criteria in high risk and moderate risk people, monoarthralgia is minor criteria, whereas polyarthralgia is minor criteria in low risk population. And other small differences, ESR more than 60 is required for minor criteria of low risk people, whereas in moderate to high risk it is ESR more than 30 degrees, 30 mm per first hour. Understood the difference? Did you understand difference between low
Yes,
risk and moderate to high risk? This is the only change which occurred, so you have to remember. So whenever Viva, if they want to ask, they will ask what is the update given, what is the change in the Jones criteria. You have to tell these two. In high risk population, even polyarthralgia and monoarthritis is considered as major criteria, whereas monoarthralgia is minor criteria. These 2 points only you have to tell. So how do you diagnose acute rheumatic fever? Mostly it is clinical diagnosis, and this based on this criteria. There is no gold standard diagnostic technique. You can take throat cultures, swab culture can be taken, and initially they were considered gold standard for diagnosis of streptococcal infection. But by the time of development of rheumatic fever, most of the people will have inactive infection. So culture will yield negative results. So it is subsequently it is not considered as gold standard. They can take rapid antigen test from the throat swab, which has specificity of 95% and sensitivity of 60 to 90%. You can also do antibody test like anti-streptolysin O antibody, anti-DNase B, anti-hyaluronidase. These two are important. ASLO and anti-DNase B. These two antibody tests are important. So ASLO titers more than 2:1 dilution is called positive response. When do you take sample? Between 2 to 4 week of interval. These are antibodies. So body will take some time to develop antibodies against the antigen. So it should be obtained between 2 to 4 week interval. It will start appearing after 1 week, but peak detection will be at 2 weeks of infection. So all cases of suspected rheumatic fever should have elevated ASLO demonstration should be there. So you can see this minor criteria, what are all included. There is polyarthralgia, fever, ESR and CRP, prolonged PR interval. So this is also important. What are the ECG changes in acute rheumatic fever? Persistent sinus tachycardia will be seen usually. During sleeping, everyone will have bradycardia or heart rate will be towards lower side. But these patients will have even elevated heart rates during sleep. So sinus bradycardia with PR prolongation is commonly seen. PR prolongation seen in 20 to 30% of the cases. Why there will be PR prolongation in acute rheumatic fever? It is said to be due to vagal overactivity and myocardial inflammation. Due to myocardial inflammation, there will be reflex vagal overactivity, which will cause bradycardia and PR prolongation. This has no correlation with the development of carditis. There can be high-grade AV block. If the PR is prolonged, subsequently it will develop AV blocks and complete heart block. There can be ECG changes of pericarditis and QT prolongation. So mainly you have to remember PR prolongation will be seen and sinus bradycardia can be seen. So what valve changes will occur? Characteristic features are chordal elongation and annular dilatation. AML will be prolapsed. During acute inflammation, the chorda tendineae will get elongated and annulus will be dilated. Mitral annulus will be dilated. Due to dilatation of mitral annulus and AML prolapse, there will be MR, posterolateral jet of the MR. How do you diagnose carditis? By echocardiography. It has high sensitivity and avoids misdiagnosis. Not required for you. If you are interested, you can read. In Harrison, it is given. How do you diagnose the echocardiographically? How do you diagnose rheumatic heart disease? So there should be, for MR, there should be at least in two views, the jet length should be more than 2 centimeters and velocity should be more than 3 meters per second. There should be pansystolic jet. Anyway, this is not important for you. This is a postgraduate level. You just read Jones criteria, that is enough. So here you can see normally there are two leaflets, mitral valve, anterior mitral valve leaflet and posterior mitral valve leaflet. During rheumatic heart disease, you can see that they are not opposing properly. There will be mitral regurgitation. Endomyocardial biopsy, what you will see? You can see Eschoff nodules, but the sensitivity is only 43%. Though specificity is 100%, sensitivity is 43%. So it did not provide any additional diagnostic information. So endomyocardial biopsy is not recommended during rheumatic fever. This is the Eschoff nodule. You can see histological feature. So what is the treatment? Treatment can be mainly primary prevention. So you have to treat the streptococcal infection. Then you have to give anti-inflammatory agents for carditis. And then you have to give supportive management to prevent complications and secondary prevention. So how do you treat streptococcal infection? Best treatment is injection benzathine penicillin 1.2 million units or 12 lakh units IM single dose. One shot of benzathine penicillin 1.2 million units is enough for treatment of streptococcal pharyngitis. Or otherwise, you have to give oral phenoxymethylpenicillin 500 mg BD for 10 days. If they are sensitive to penicillin, you have to allergic to penicillin, then you can give erythromycin also. So how do you treat arthritis? Once the diagnosis is confirmed, you have to give aspirin, very high doses, 100 mg per kilogram for 2 weeks, and then gradually taper to 60 to 80 mg per kg for another 4 weeks. What is the usual aspirin dose you give in myocardial infarction? What is the dose of aspirin? Can anyone answer?
600 to 8.
600. In myocardial infarction, you give 75 to 150 mg per day.
Okay.
You might have seen 150 mg ecosprin tablets will be there, no? 75, 150. So very low dose will be given in for myocardial infarction. Whereas here, for anti-inflammatory dose of aspirin, you have to give very high doses. Alternative to aspirin is naproxen. If there is carditis, some studies say steroids are useful, but most of the studies disprove it. So if you want to give carditis in refractory cases, the dose is 1 to 2 milligram per kg for 4 weeks. For skin lesions, there is no specific treatment. They are all self-limiting diseases. And chorea, if there is a chorea, it is also self-limiting and it will disappear after 20 years of age. So you can reassure the patient. You can give NSAIDs, haloperidol, carbamazepine can be given for refractory cases. There is a trial with intravenous immunoglobulin for the treatment of rheumatic chorea if there is no response to valproate or carbamazepine. But these are shown to have no benefit. So if there is a refractory carditis and the MR is very severe, they can have patient should undergo surgery. What is best? We have to do mitral valve repair or mitral valve replacement. Which is better? Which is better surgery here? Mitral valve repair is not better because this is an autoimmune reaction. If you repair the mitral valve again, antibodies will come and again the changes will occur. So better to change the valve. Valve replacement is better than the repair. So secondary prophylaxis, WHO guidelines are there. According to this, if there is no carditis, acute rheumatic fever, patient should undergo secondary prophylaxis for 5 years after the last attack or until 21 years of age. Whichever is longer, we have to give either 5 years after last attack or until the patient attains 21 years of age. If there is associated carditis, then it will increase to 10 years or age till 21 years, whichever is longer. 35, this is 35 years. If there is a valve surgery, lifelong prophylaxis should be given. There is a recent development of anti-streptococcal vaccine with M protein vaccines. They are likely to succeed in future. This is for protection against streptococcal pharyngitis. The prognosis is there will be good prognosis for older age group, and if there is no carditis, the prognosis is good. If the attack is very early, like 5 years or 6 years, patient will have poor prognosis. If the attack is late, around 15 years or 14 years, severity will be less. Summary: is more of a clinical diagnosis and echocardiography. There is no gold standard diagnostic test, and you have to remember the changes in the Jones criteria. And what is you have to know the difference between primary prophylaxis and secondary prophylaxis. What is primary prophylaxis? Can anyone tell? Difference
Before the
between
development,
before the
development of a disease, I mean, for the small children, throat swab we can do and then we can provide. There is streptococcus.
patient will already develop pharyngitis. So you
Yes.
have to treat the pharyngitis before development of cardiac disease. Before he develops carditis, you treat the throat infection. So untreated throat infections will cause carditis. So if you give penicillin, one shot of penicillin is enough to treat pharyngitis. So it is very easy to prevent carditis. Once carditis develops, 80% will go into chronic rheumatic heart disease. So better to prevent in primary prophylaxis. Primordial prevention can be there. That is elimination of the streptococcal infection, like prevention of overcrowding and all. Whereas secondary prophylaxis is already patient develops carditis. We have to prevent development of recurrent attacks, which will cause chronic rheumatic heart disease. Secondary prophylaxis to prevent chronic rheumatic heart disease, whereas primary prophylaxis to prevent carditis from pharyngitis. Thank you. Any doubts? Everyone understood? Huh? క్లాస్ అయిపోయింది. స్టాక్ షేరింగ్ సెషన్ 10 గా